Hello YouTube, Mike Kohanam here. Today I'm going to be talking about a couple of deck building tips that you can use if you're a new or returning player in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. There's a couple of cool things that make deck building a lot easier, and they're all within the game itself. There are several ways to access good deck lists, and once you can recognize which ones are good, you can copy those deck lists, adjust them to your playstyle, and use those decks. They're not all too obvious within the game itself, so I'm just going to show them to you quickly and demonstrate how you can use them to build the deck you want to build. The first trick is something that is also actually in Duel Links, and for those who are new to Master Duel and do not play Duel Links, you may not have discovered this feature. I think it's one of the coolest things in Duel. One of the cool things about Duel Links, when you play in ranked duels, you can see the deck your opponent is using after you duel them. So if you see, if you encounter a deck and you think, "Hey, this deck's really cool. It has a lot of cool tricks. I want to play it." This method will help you build that deck easily. So from the main screen, you can actually go to Duel, click on Ranked Duel, and you'll see on the side that there's actually a tab for match history. Click it, and you can see some of your recent duels. You can see that I lost my last duel against a pendulum-based deck. You can see the replay if you'd like to watch that, but what we're looking at here is the confirm opponent's deck. That will actually show you your opponent's deck list, who you lost to or beat in that ranked duel. Now, if you just want to play that deck, all you have to do is click Copy Deck. It gives me a warning because there are cards in the list that I don't have, but you click Copy it, and it copies the deck to your decks. Now we go back, go to the deck section, and you will see that the deck is saved as opponent's deck. We can edit that deck. Rename it, and you can see all the cards you're missing. You can adjust it how you want, but the cool thing is that you now have a blueprint that you can follow if that's a deck you want to play. Okay. The other way to find a deck that you want to play is to go to the deck section from the main screen. From here, you can either click Public Deck Search or Copy from Public Deck. Let's click Public Deck Search. So the other day, I wanted to build a Toon deck, and I thought this was a good place to start. I know a lot of the cards that Toon decks can use, have at their disposal, and I know that one of the strongest cards and the real center of the deck is Toon Kingdom. So let's type in Toon Kingdom to take a look at deck lists that people have made public, all of which use at least one copy of Toon Kingdom. So these are all decks that use Toon Kingdom. In all likelihood, they are in fact Toon decks. If you just type in Toon, you might see some Exodia decks using Toon Table of Contents and other decks using Toon cards that aren't Toon decks. So try typing in the name of a card that is key to the deck you're building in order to limit down the searches or the search results. Now that we have a bunch of Toon decks to look at, let's click them one at a time. Right off the bat, I know that I don't want to build this first deck that I clicked. This deck uses Toon Mermaid, which is one of the older Toon monsters that has all of the vulnerabilities of the earlier Toon monsters that have been printed, which means they can't attack the turn they're summoned, and they're destroyed if Toon World is destroyed. And I know, even with my limited knowledge of Toons, that there are just better Toon monsters out there. That said, there's still a lot that you can learn from this deck list. including the effects of certain tune cards that you may not know exist or you may not know exactly what they do. For example, this deck uses Tune Bookmark. If you're unaware, Tune Bookmark is an incredible card that lets you add Toon World, or a card that lists Toon World in its text from your deck to your hand. Plus, it has an effect that allows you to protect a Toon World. So it's similar to Toon Table of Contents, but even more powerful in many ways. If you're unfamiliar with Comic Hand, for example, this deck list will allow you to consider it for your deck. Same with Toon Terror. So even the deck lists where you don't think that the decks are built optimally and it's nowhere near the type of deck you want to be using, you can still learn a lot from if you're getting the hang of a specific theme. Next, let's click the second deck list. This deck list is a lot more like the Toon deck that I'm trying to build. It maxes out on Toon Blackluster Soldier, which I think is one of the strongest Toon monsters there is, and uses Toon Dark Magician, Red Eyes Toon Dragon, and Toon Harpy Lady, which allow you to swarm the field with Toon monsters and hopefully beat your opponent quickly. Plus, these are the new Toon monsters that don't have the vulnerabilities of the Toon monsters that had been printed earlier. This looks like a modern Toon deck, built fairly well. That would be a great starting point for the Toon deck I want to make. You'll also notice certain things in the extra deck that are really cool that you may not have considered otherwise. For example, when I first saw Cyber/Harpy Lady, I thought, why is this deck list using Cyber/Harpy Lady? This isn't a Harpy deck. But once I read it, I realized you can treat any Harpy monster you control as a tuner, not just a Harpy Lady on your field, which means it works with Toon Harpy Lady. So this deck can actually synchro summon Cyber/Harpy Lady. What's also cool is that the deck uses Toon Cyber Dragon with Chimeratech Mega Fleet Dragon. At first, I thought the Mega Fleet Dragon was only in there to play against Cyber Dragon decks that leave a Cyber Dragon on the field. But from looking at the deck list, I learned that unlike Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, which requires a Cyber Dragon on either side of the field to be sent to the graveyard to summon it, Chimeratech Mega Fleet Dragon actually uses one Cyber Dragon monster, which includes Toon Cyber Dragon. Similarly, the Blackstone of Legend, if you're unfamiliar with this card, you may not know it can actually special summon a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from your deck, not just Red Eyes Black Dragon. So it can be used to summon Red Eyes Toon Dragon and get the deck going. Other cards in the extra deck that I also may not have thought to use, I would like to now consider, including Relinquished Anima, because I use the level 1 Blackstone of Legend. So this is a deck list that I like. Just be aware, this deck list uses 2 copies of the limited one, Totally Awesome. Even though this card's on the limited list on Master Duel and you can only use 1 copy, this deck list actually has 2. The database that Master Duel pulls decks from includes deck lists for the TCG, OCG, and Master Duel, which are all 3 different forbidden and limited lists. I believe the deck search feature is linked to Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron, which is an app I have on my phone. It's an official Konami app, which is, it also has this deck search feature, which is a great resource for building decks in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. So that said, if there are some cards that you can't use because of the forbidden and limited list, you will have to make adjustments by removing cards, like in this deck, for example, 1 copy of Totally Awesome. Once you've decided which deck you want to build, just click Copy Deck. It'll once again tell me, this time it gives me 2 warnings actually, that it contains cards I don't have, and that it can't be used in duels because it does not meet limit regulations. That's the 2 copies of Totally Awesome in the extra deck that I talked about before. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to copy the deck list and then I'll remove a Totally Awesome for a different card. It doesn't seem too crucial to this deck. Now that the deck is copied, I can go back and I can see the deck. And I can make changes to fit my playstyle. You'll see that I actually have most of the cards for this deck because I did consider building tunes, and I did want to build this deck. So I thought this was a very good starting point. There's a lot of things about this deck that I like, including the Pot of Extravagance, because I don't believe tunes are particularly reliant on using the extra deck, so it's copied. I've already made some adjustments to take into account what I have in my collection and a desire to get the deck down to 40 cards. But that deck was a phenomenal starting point. And I also recommend looking at other deck lists in the public deck search to help you figure out what you want to build. There's a lot of different themes in Master Duel and in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, and this deck search feature will help you find the build that you want to make. I've gotten a lot of questions from players asking, do you have a Live Twins deck list? Or what kind of, what's the best tune deck? Do you have some starting point so that I can just start playing it? And this is the deck search feature that I always recommend. With that, just read the cards, practice with the deck, make the adjustments. You'll rarely find that a deck that somebody else built is perfect for your playstyle. So you'll usually want to make changes. In my experience, when I just copy a deck without really thinking about the interactions and synergies, I don't do as well with the deck as if I built it myself or made major changes to that deck. So my recommendation is that don't stray from don't worry about straying from the deck lists that you initially copy and the decks that you initially build, because you're going to want to make it your own. And you're going to need to build a deck that fits your playstyle in order to succeed with it. When I competed in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game World Championship, I used a Gladiator Beast deck when most people thought Gladiator Beasts were not even competitive at the time. But I made constant changes every few days. I practiced nonstop. Every few days I made changes to the deck, and because I was putting the cards in and making a decision to put the cards in based on how they interact with other cards, I understood the interactions between everything in the deck, and I was able to play it well. It does take a lot of time and a lot of commitment to the game to really excel at playing the deck, but copying one of the other decks from the public search will give you a great starting point to build the deck that you want. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would appreciate it if you did, and that helps to give me the feedback so I know whether people are watching the videos and whether I should post more.